How many graphic designers or graffiti artists do I have here? One. Two. Okay, great. How many developers are in the room? All right, a little bit more on the developer side. How many like people in marketing and branding and that kind of stuff? Oh, a handful of you guys in the room too, cool. All of you are my people, because collectively all of us together move projects forward, right? My name is Phil, and I work with a company called REEF.io. We're a layer 1 project that's built on Substrate, that's EVM compatible, and I'm not really here to shill our project there. What I am here to talk about is culture. My friends created, there we go, my friends created this shirt that says, culture is currency, and to me that's very relevant. Because as we talk about like technical things, we get all on this technical side of what blockchain provides, we can't forget about the other side, the people, the non-wallet holders, right? So as we as a community are like designing and developing and doing these things, we get stuck in our own echo chamber of like, we know the knowledge, we have like the terminology and it's our own kind of crew. And we're like, we're gonna build these things for people that don't even have wallets, but we're not kind of communicating with them and then we're not bringing them into our communities, right? And so that's one of the things I want to talk about with REEF. I'm on to like help build a cultural arts program. And that's going to be outreach. And so that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about graffiti and NFTs. So these are kind of 4 areas of focus that I'll talk about. And then hopefully once I finish up, we'll be able to have a little bit of Q&A because I'm always curious to know what you guys are doing, where you're from, how I can share resources and tools, and how we can collaborate. So NFTs are part of a global community, which we already know. We know this stuff because we're building things and we're on Twitter and we're on, we use all the social media to reach out to these folks. But are they familiar and did they know about us? Graffiti can beautify cities and uplift underserved communities, right? Graffiti artists can now collaborate with nonprofit agencies with the use of NFTs as utility as a tool to heal trauma in certain areas where people just really need things, right? And it's for social impact. And then finally, Wag Me, right? There's the t-shirts that say Wag Me. Again, this is like one of that internal speak that everybody knows in crypto. But you go and say these words or you have a Wag Me t-shirt and you see strangers like, what the heck does that mean? What's this Wag Me? And we're all gonna make it, right? So I want to just kind of touch a little bit about that as well. So let's talk about NFTs and the landscape of what we see today. And since you guys are all in the know, you guys will completely understand, and this will resonate with you like it resonates with me. It feels like it's a small island that's really crowded. And the reason why it's really crowded is because there are just a handful of people that are utilizing the technology in their specific way that benefits the few, but not the many, right? And so let's talk about like NFT projects, like all the noise and what everybody's talking about. We're talking about profile picture projects, right? PFPs. And we're also talking about generative art. So these are kind of things that if you're in the know, then you work on these projects and you do this thing. And we know that at some level, it feels like it's gamified. So when we're trying to onboard new people, and we're trying to explain to them how art can now be minted as an NFT, and then in a smart contract, you're gonna be able to get residual income on secondary and third market sales, that makes kind of a sense. But what they don't realize is that people who are actively utilizing the system have gamified it. And so, and again, I'm not trying to talk smack about projects that happen, because in my opinion, this is part of the growth. This is part of the growth process of using a system, breaking it, exploiting it, and then getting other people involved, so this way they can enter at a place where they feel safe and comfortable. So we're talking about accessibility, affordability, and inclusivity. And in today's landscape, is it really accessible to people? So there are a handful of people, there are people around the country or around the world that if they don't have internet connection, then they may not have accessibility, but everybody has a cell phone. So realistically, there is technically some accessibility in NFTs, and at least accessing them and taking a view of them. Once you have a cell phone, can you actually afford it though, right? People who are getting into the space don't understand like gas wars, and they don't understand why I wanted to buy this NFT for $25 and it costs $100 to mint it, right? By show of hands, anybody here have that experience, right? So you guys are in the know, and we're trying to ask our friends and be like, hey, support my project. Go ahead and mint an NFT. And they're like, bro, why don't you just send it to me for $25? I'll donate it, right? And so it's not really affordable for many people, depending on which blockchains. And again, we're in the know, but other people don't understand what is gas, what is this, what is that, you know? And then let's talk about inclusivity, right? And just based on the fact that sometimes people are priced out of your projects and really can't afford it, then that limits that inclusivity automatically. We want to include them, but are we really including them if they can't afford it, right? So that's kind of an issue. It feels like the systems have been gamified in some sort of way. It's really difficult to onboard new people when they sit there and think that I don't have a good understanding of it, and then trying to explain it to them makes zero sense, which means that if there's so much friction to try to participate, then they're not going to onboard. They're not going to have anything to do with us. So when we talk about inclusivity and all the things that make things accessible, you know, I don't know how long anybody here has been into the blockchain space, but I started myself in 2016. And my reason is because I wanted to know more about the economic system. You know, I don't know, does anybody here, have you heard of Andreas Antonopoulos? Yeah? So that's another thing. Great, I love this. See, if you're gonna be in this space, I encourage you to understand where its origination comes from. Not just like a white paper that Satoshi Nakamoto wrote, but let's talk about people who were the first early adopters kind of sharing the knowledge and why blockchain exists and why it's so powerful, you know? Back then, they were talking about NFTs in a different way. They were talking about DAOs in a specific way as possibilities. And those possibilities were that the blockchain exists so we can empower the rest of the world that are bankless, you know? Cross borders, this was made for the people, they're not for us. We have access to a bank. There's a bank right up the street. I can go in there, and so we're used to these legacy systems that service and service well, but it doesn't serve the rest of the world. And so when this technology was launched, it was really meant for them. And so NFTs, the idea of NFTs back then was because there's issues of land grabbing in countries like Africa, where there have been like people who have lived on this land for generations and can't prove that they have this thing. So the idea was, what if we were able to like put this on a blockchain, record it on blockchain, so now you have like land ownership, identity, and all that. So that was really the original ideas, and that was the first words that I heard about NFTs. And that was making things, but instead, you know, we're kind of the people who first used it. So what happened is, you know, with blockchain, is he released the first blockchain, which is like this tool that everybody can use. And when I look at this, we're looking at different, you know, the way you can build projects is you have to look at blockchains as like different shapes and sizes. I like to think of it as Legos, right? So we're released all these Legos, everybody individually can build these things the way they want to. And so that is by your choice. Legos come in different colors, shapes, and sizes. And so when you're building your teams, you can build your teams with this stuff in mind. So then when we talk about equitability, sustainability, affordability, when you have all these different mindsets as people that are building your projects, that's already baked into your project, right? So we think of these people first, and that's how you can, you know, really go about building your projects. I'm not telling you what to do or how to do it. If you've already started on a project, then try creating some sort of, like start reaching out to different people that you can add to your team. Different perspectives, young people, males, females, people of color, old guys. We have like perspective and we can share some things. And so by having a diverse team, you're gonna have a diverse product. When you have a diverse product, you're gonna have a wider audience, right? And so you guys are thinking of all this stuff. We don't need to sit there and ask, is this thing affordable? Is it equitable? Is it available to everybody? Yes, it is kind of, because you guys built those projects, right? So I just suggest that as you guys are building your teams, think from this perspective, because these projects are reflections of you as creators, right? So let's talk about some projects and stuff that we really came to talk about as Graffiti. So I'm sorry I went off on that rant for a second. Graffiti is near and dear to my heart. I'm an old school guy. You know, my brothers and I used to throw raves back in the 90s in Colorado, and I'm from Colorado. So with that, with these old like kind of analog systems, we would have DJs and graphic designers, and we'd have graffiti artists. Graffiti artists created the space around us and the environment, kind of like what you see today. So street art for me is something that I've always been engaged in, something that I've followed, that I've really appreciated. And the cool thing is today, now it's like widely accepted, right? You can go to any city, and now you can go to certain areas, in Berlin especially. You guys have some amazing, how many people are from Berlin, by the way? And then everybody else is visiting from other countries? Oh, great. So you guys back home, what I'm saying is that what you guys are seeing here represents street culture, street art, things that exist in your cities as well. And now it's coming out of the shadows. Back in the day, people used to get in trouble, right? So you go to jail to be a graffiti artist and do this. And now it's like widely accepted, and now people are getting hired to beautify their cities. One of the projects that I want to talk about that has really inspired me is actually a homegrown project from Berlin. So if only a couple of you guys are here from Berlin, maybe you know this project. It's called metawalls.io. So if you get a chance, just type it in, metawalls.io. And their concept, they released a Genesis project starting back in November. So when I was doing research about graffiti art and how the word is being out, how can we get graffiti artists, traditional artists into the NFT space? We're not talking about flippers, and we're not talking about PFP projects and generative art. We're talking about art, street art. How can we get those people involved? And so when I found this project, I thought this was really interesting. And what they did was they were able to blend tech with a gallery or a curator who's also dialed in with an artist who's here locally, a person named Jim Avignon. And so the idea and the concept was that they wanted to take a section of the Berlin Wall, scan it, and have, they would scan it first, divide it into pieces, so you can see it here. So you have the artist, you can divide it into pieces, mint it, and then do an auction. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. But the best part about it is when I was listening to an AMA, Jim Avignon is advocate for homeless here in Berlin. And he said, I will do this project with you guys. However, I want a portion of these proceeds to benefit this nonprofit agency. So that's social activity, at its rarest form, injecting money directly where it needs to go in the moment, right? That's to me, that's real utility. That's moving something, and that's really. So I followed the project. They launched the Genesis project in November, followed their marketing program. When they launched it and released the NFTs, I bought one myself. And I bought one because not that I wanted to buy something that I think was going to go up or down in value. I bought it because of the story behind it, right? You have the story that you're connecting an artist with an agency, with technology. Everybody's just trying to make this thing happen. And the end person, the winner of the whole thing, is society, the people who now were able to get money to their nonprofit agency to support the homeless. So my money invisibly went out to hopefully put food, shelter, water to a complete stranger. And I will do that all day, every day. And I think everybody in this room would do the same thing. So that was really, really fascinating that these guys produced a project. It still exists, and now they've slowly started adding more traditional artists. They've slowly started minting more things, and the money still goes to these artists. And again, since we already know what the possibility is with NFTs, that's just the first market. That's the introductory market. Secondary market and third markets, if you start finding collectors, and I think the future will be like this, we are traditionally as donors anyway, right? A donor will go in and we're providing money to spend for this thing that we believe in. And so we have no idea or no purpose for flipping or selling, right? But eventually I think what can happen in the nonprofit sector when we collaborate like this is now I find the next thing that needs, the next community that needs help, and they've worked with an artist, right? So we can see this thing being done over and over and over, not just in my community, but yours as well. So that was the first project that I saw that was really cool. Followed it, participated in it, and I still follow it today. These guys have slowly evolved from not just doing artists here, but they also have a metaverse space, right? So they moved into a gallery there where they can showcase this art, where now people can now purchase more art. That was one thing. The next thing that we had, and I wanted to show you a couple of case studies, is that happened in November. With REEF, we were coming to ETH Denver, which is another big event like this, but it was really more of a hackathon. And so it was really a lot of tech people. And I was like, this is fantastic. I love what these guys did with MetaWall. REEF is like, you know what, we have this marketing strategy, but why don't you just take it over since you want to work with graffiti artists? And so this is what I did personally, and I think any of you guys here can do the very same thing, whether you're a marketer or whether you guys have a company. So people are here right there, you can go see there's merch that's being sold. When we come to these events, what we wanted to do at ETH Denver was I wanted to reach out to graffiti artists, the ones that I know in Denver. None of them have wallets, none of them are into crypto. They just go out and do their beautiful work out on the street. And I thought, well, what's the best way for us to engage with these artists and bring them into this tech community and feel like we're not trying to take from them and say, well, we just want you to do this thing and we're gonna sell out this project and then leave them, right? That's not developing a relationship, and it's not gonna last very long, and it's very one-sided in my opinion. So reached out to them, explained what we were doing, told them about metal walls, and these guys are like, why would anybody wanna buy a stupid JPEG of my, like I painted this wall, I sell pieces. This makes zero sense, Phil. I don't know what you're trying to get me into. Sounds like a Ponzi scheme, right? So I said, listen, we need nothing from you. We have a strategy. What we're gonna do is we're giving away t-shirts, we're giving away stickers. What we would like you to do is take the REEF logo, street style it however you want to. We'll make stickers, we're gonna make t-shirts, and I want you to do a commemorative wall that welcomes people from around the world to Denver, and you just design it any way you want to. We were also involved in an after party, and I said, here's what we will do for you too. You guys take over one room in the basement and turn it into your own kind of art studio, like a gallery, where people can actually now see your physical art and they can bid on it or buy it if they want to. Cool? And they're like, cool, let's do that. So at ETH Denver, there was a lot of activity. People came to the booth and they're like, oh, can I get one of those t-shirts? And I was like, yes, you can, but we're asking you to do us a favor and support these artists. Will you go to the wall, take a picture and tag them? Because we're really trying to build up their social capital by having some eyeballs on their projects. That's us communicating and working with artists, not taking from them, but giving to them, right? I think that's the most interesting part, especially in this space. We gotta think, what are we giving back? What are we doing for you? Right now we're in this like situation where it's me, it's all about me. And in the United States, it's really all about me, you know? I feel like the culture here is a little bit more altruistic and people think of others first, but in the United States, it's tough. It's like, I don't know what your opinion is, but if you watch the news, it's not great news to see like how our communities are divided, how our culture's divided, how our society's divided. And so when somebody asks you to do something, you're really skeptical, right? And so the artists were the same way. And so we did, we ended up getting people to come to our booth. They loved the t-shirts. They went out there to the wall, took their pictures. We helped these guys build some social capital. They loved it. They were like, holy crap, who are all these people? And it was a way for us to introduce tech people into like traditional artists and know that we need them like they need us, right? How are we gonna build these things? And again, I'm just talking from the art community and as we're building NFT projects, right? And how can we blend all of these communities together? And so that's what we did. It was wildly successful. Any of the things that we've done here, all of you guys can do yourselves as well. Everybody knows an artist. Everybody has a community. Everybody, and there's always a situation where there's a time of somebody in need. There's always a dire situation where an emergency funds need to be infused into some group of people that we just can't wait for the government to take care of them. We can't wait for somebody to file for money to get grants and all this stuff when you have homeless that need food today. And so that was a beautiful thing that I think these guys did, Jim Avignon did as an artist, you know, and in this community. And so our thing is we just wanted to just do an awareness campaign. So what you see up here is the artist doing the work. This was a collaboration. So what you see is these legacy graffiti artists. A couple of them have actually gone to prison and went to jail for their artwork, you know. And just sidebar story, one of them, yeah, I don't really want to get there, but they've worked really, really hard. They've gone through the trials of life. And now people today get to benefit of the fact that they can spray paint and not have to go to prison for that kind of stuff, right? So that's the traditional artist. And then with the illustrations there, we had the old school with the new school. Everybody, you know, it's just it was an overall a great thing. And then here it is like a month after the project, they came to me and they're like, hey, can we download a wallet? Can you show us how to download a wallet? And I said, yes, not only can I download a wallet with you guys, can I send you some Bitcoin? And they're like, okay, cool, right? So that was that engagement. They came to me. I didn't need to force them to join. they felt like the collaboration and felt like they were being listened to and included. That was the inclusiveness. Another thing that I want to talk about is another case study of how art can heal trauma in a situation of tragedy. And this is my friend Alicia, and this is some of her work that she's done. She's been big in the community. She's a graphic designer, she's an artist, and she owns a tattoo shop. So we started off back in November with the launch of this Genesis project with the Berlin Wall. Then we went on to ETH Denver, but something tragic happened in the middle of that whole thing. In December, right around Christmas time, I don't know if you guys saw this on the news, there was a mass shooting that happened. And 6 people were killed. And the shooter who was out in public, had mental issues. He was just, we found out later that a lot of this could have been cured if we just paid more attention to people in need. So I'm not trying to advocate for a shooter who goes out and kills somebody, but what I am saying is that nobody in their right mind would go out and shoot people in the first place, right? So she is one of the victims. So my friend died. She and her partner, who was in the office with her, were one of the first 2 victims that were shot. My friend James was one of the survivors of that tattoo shop. And then the shooter continued on, went to another place and shot, and then went to another place and killed somebody, and went to another place and then was engaged by a female police officer. And she was shot. And she managed, while she was getting shot, to pull her gun out and kill the shooter. So everybody died, making, there's just no winners in this situation, right? So when these things happen, our community came together and they started a GoFundMe. Is everybody familiar with what GoFundMe is? So online you can do a GoFundMe, and this is where you can infuse funds, and you can anonymously or just directly send money to people that are starting this fundraising event. And that's kind of like normally what happens. Everybody wants to give. I wanted to give myself. And then I thought about the projects that we're doing and how can we make this slightly different? How can this person have a legacy? She has a story. She has a child that's still left behind. She has a tattoo studio that will either fold or it's going to survive, but it's really, really tough when you've had this. When the dust settles and the news goes away, the story's still there. There are these survivors of these situations, and it just goes away. The GoFundMe funds will go away. What if we did something slightly different? What if with the technology and the possibilities that we have, what if we were to scan one of these walls, make it a memorial piece, let the world community know of what's going on and what happened here, mint it as an NFT, let people purchase this, and now they are kind of carrying on the legacy. What if in the smart contracts we separate it into a couple of different ways that people can access those funds? What if one of those access points of the funds was her business, her children, and then, and to the programmers, the people who created the business to begin with, right? So that's a legacy that could live on, and so I already donated anyway. The difference is that I would be donating and I'm getting something back. My receipt is this NFT. The NFT is the story of my friend's life that can live on, in perpetuity. It's on the blockchain now. Instead of these tragic stories where something happens like this, and then the next newsworthy thing comes, and then the next newsworthy, and nobody's really thinking about where this happened. And then change doesn't happen, right? In New York, a similar thing happened in Buffalo. This is my brother-in-law's hometown. And I don't know if you guys heard this on the news as well. So an active shooter went into a grocery store and killed only black people. It was very intentional, and it was really tough, and it adds more divisiveness to our culture and to our society. And think about this. What if we were able to work with a graphic designer or an artist, and we wanted to make a commemorative place to heal that community, so that they look at this store and not think of an active shooter who came in and killed black people. We look at this and we see this beautiful piece of art, which is expressing forgiveness and collectiveness and moving on, right? Art can do that. It's very emotional. And so these are the possibilities. This is what I was wanting to talk about with what we can do in situations like this and how we can utilize the tools that we have today. We have to be really realistic too. Like in this, I feel like we're in a bubble and there's a lot of hopium that's being expressed here, like, oh, we're gonna do this, we can do that. But the reality is there are limitations. Everybody here who, as part of this event, you have to download a wallet, you get your ticket on a wallet, but it's not always a seamless experience. I experienced it myself, and there's a gentleman right here in the room, raise your hand there. He helped me out, he's a developer, and he understands too. So if it's that difficult for us, just think about onboarding new people. And let's think about like saying, well, we want to do this thing for our community. And they're like, well, we can't even attach a freaking wallet and it's not working there. Just do this stupid GoFundMe. So we have to really be realistic about how we do these things, when we launch them. Is it really working? Is it accessible? And bake that into what we're doing, right? And then the last thing I want to talk about is WAGMI. Right? We use this word all the time in this community. We are all gonna make it, right? But are we all gonna make it in the same way? Am I gonna make it the same way that you're gonna make it, or the way you're gonna make it, or you're gonna make it? That really depends on your own personal experience and your perspective. And are we able to handle adversity in a way that comes out on a positive side? This is a really stressful, what's the word I'm thinking? The technology itself is moving so fast that if you guys get caught up into it and you're just stuck in your mind and you're stuck into thinking about the future or the past, the future like, I've got to get this thing done. The past is, oh, I screwed up and I didn't do this thing right. You're never in a present moment. You're always thinking forward or thinking behind, and you're actually doing from that perspective. How is that helping yourself? And how is that helping your team? And how is that helping the people that you're building these projects for? So I think it's really important to understand, like, you know, we live in this 5 sense reality where we're always kind of doing this, but I really highly suggest that you guys explore this internal piece of you. We say this all the time, you have gut instinct, like things happen in a certain way. I encourage you to cultivate this other side of you, which will give you a base, right? And it means different things to different people. So community building is one way that you can build this piece within yourselves. Go out and do something for somebody else. Try that on. This has nothing to do with spirituality or anything like that. It's just being a human, doing human things, something for somebody else, and just see how that feels. See how mad you're gonna be about this, that, or anything when you're working with somebody who has less than you do. Seriously, I think volunteering is underrated. I volunteer myself and it's changed my life, to be honest with you guys. I have started projects and the giving mindset has changed me from having a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. I have an abundance of energy that I can give to somebody else. All of you do. I just implore you to try to activate it and try it out for size and see what happens. So that's community building. Connection is just seeing yourself in other people, you know? I enjoy coming to Europe, and I tell my partner this all the time. The best part of coming to Europe is that I get to be in rooms where I don't understand other languages. It's strictly eye contact, it's body language, and we're all very much the same. We don't need this, we don't need the vocal language to have an understanding of who we are as humans and how we interact with each other, right? Self-care. I mean, this means different things to different people, but I really encourage you, as you guys, we got a lot of smart people in this room, I can see it. I know you guys are doing projects. Don't get so attached to your intellect, that your intellect is guiding you in your choices. Self-care means use your intellect to find something that inspires you to make change within. There are plenty of podcasts out there. There's one that I'm just gonna recommend, and if you guys wanna write this down, it's really simple to remember. It's called Practicing Human. Practicing Human. They have an amazing podcast. They're like 8-minute, like snackable bits of information where you can just listen to different things and it may resonate with you in different ways. And you just can't put a dollar figure on this. It's so empowering within that it makes you a different person inside, which makes you a different person on the outside. You do different things. When you do different things and when you come from this abundance kind of mindset that you can do many things, then you can pay attention to the emergent needs and impact that you can do into the world. Because you already see it, it's obvious, it's right there in front of your face, what to do next. And the interesting thing is when you come from that space, in that like kind of negative space, and my friend Anya, who started the Berlin walls, when we were talking, I said, well, how did you come up with this idea? And she was like, there was a gap. There was a gap that needed to be fulfilled. And she was like, I love to live in the gaps. And the gaps is the unknown. And the unknown, depending on your mindset, is 100% potential. I mean, it's everything and nothing lives in that space. Like in those quiet moments, I'm sure every one of you had this, where like, I can't figure it out, I can't figure it out. And then all of a sudden, when you least expect it, when you're just like watering the lawn or something, the solution comes to you. That's the gaps. That's the emptiness where everything can kind of exist. But it doesn't if you're not cultivating it. And so, again, I ask you guys to just really kind of think of what I'm saying. All of this is just sharing tools. And I know you guys are like, what does this have to do with NFTs? I think it has everything to do with how you live, which is how you are on the inside, which is how you express yourself, which is how you build your teams, which is how your community trusts you, which is how your products get built. It all comes back to that, in my opinion. So that's kind of what I have to say there. I don't know if we have much time for questions. The last thing I was gonna do, that's my dog there. I like to personally find my bliss, and my bliss is hanging out with my puppy. And that's what I thought. People look at my profile picture, they're like, what is that crazy thing? But all of us have this, right? That's like the non-verbal thing that everybody has in their life that brings them a little bit of happiness. And when you get into a bad space or a dark place, find that. You know, this is that for me. You guys can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn. My DMs are open, and I'm happy to share any of the resources that I have. And I'm really, really thankful that you guys came to listen to me, and hopefully you got something out of this as to the things that I'm doing, working with our communities, but really try to create this connection and do this in your own city. Work with, people that you know, reach across the aisle, connect with people that either don't think like you, don't speak like you, don't look like you, and see what sort of change can happen. Thank you. Yeah, man. If there's room for questions, I'll take it. I think I was just talking a lot, and hopefully everybody kind of could find bits and pieces that make sense to them. And yeah, not trying to give too much opinion, but just share knowledge. Yeah.
I'm a volunteer in a social project in Brazil.
Yes.
And right now, the marketing team is coming up with, trying to come up with new ideas of how to connect people who doesn't even have cell phones or laptops. They're not even aware of the internet itself. That's how bad the situation is in some places in Brazil. And how can we connect those people to NFTs and cryptos, and how can we, make this connection and make it profitable for them, that we can help them. So I was just wondering if you have any idea of how we can connect NFTs, but not including art specifically, because those people aren't producing arts. They're just, I don't know, sometimes they're just selling food or...
Yeah, that's a great question. And I have to say that we just have to deal with the limitations of where you're at regionally and what access that they do have and what can you do, right? And so maybe if you're really trying to infuse funds to them, then think a project that you as your team collectively can do. Use your cell phones, use your computers, try some sort of activation that you can get the rest of the global community behind, where we can support you, and then create a DAO, right? So then that DAO has governance. Now all of us collectively can help vote on the things that if that's what you're looking for. I'm just making a suggestion there, but that's a way to look at it. There's so many different ways to look at solving these issues in underserved communities. And one of them is that they don't have access or that they don't have computers, but you do. You have a cell phone, your team has a cell phone. So that's where I would start and do some research. What we're talking about or what we're thinking about, somebody's already done and they're already doing. I can guarantee it. Reach out there and you're gonna see that and they might be looking for a case study like you and say, well, we're about ready to launch this project. Why don't we test it out on you?
Okay, thank you.
That's my suggestion. See, there you go. I connect that. That's how connections happen.
It's an environmental project that runs on the blockchain. It doesn't need nothing that's number and someone else's computer. And then there's a
See, there you go. I just said something you're thinking of somebody else has already created or in the process of. Love that. See, in real time. This is what can happen, right? And it's all because here's a crazy thing, and it may just sound really wooey. It only happened because you were here to listen to me, and he happened to be sitting there in that room, and I met him yesterday, and he's only here because I couldn't download my stupid NFT, And he thought, I felt like the dumbest guy in the room, like I'm here to speak and I couldn't even sort out the technology. And here we are together, and so this is happening, I'm just saying. Anybody else? And there's 0 gas fee in that transaction. Cheers to that. All right, guys. Yeah, just again, like I said, I'm happy to meet and talk with anybody who wants to talk back to me and share any of my resources. I really love doing this. I feel super blessed that I was able to travel out here and that these guys really allowed me to come and sit out here and talk. It's not tech, but it's like human to human, and this is what I really appreciate about everybody who's here. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.